brothers might become billionaires. Step aside, Collison brothers. Rory and Kieran O'Reilly are the next Silicon Valley siblings. After dropping out of Harvard, they've been behind some massive internet projects, like the largest gift generation site, gifts.com, to the biggest crypto community, and a debit card company that broke social media. But it hasn't been all sunshine and roses for the brothers. The duo lost $80 million when their crypto project crashed, but they plan to make it back and then some with their newest venture, a fintech company that will blow your mind.
In this episode, you're going to learn about why it's important to figure out monetization before you even build your product, the trade-offs of focusing on product versus distribution, and how a series of average ideas can lead to your billion-dollar idea. We are building the entrepreneurship podcast for young people, so please enjoy this episode. All right, so these brothers are sick. What do you think?
I mean, so at first I was like, damn, like these guys have taken so many L's. Like they have so much talent. I've seen dudes with like 10% of the talent make 10x the money, but I think with their new thing, they're going to win. And I'm just foreshadowing because I don't want to get into their big brainy idea just yet, but I think these guys are geniuses. I just think they may have been playing in the wrong arenas like before this current moment and what they're working on now.
Well, I think they've learned a lot, right? From just like the hardships they've had to overcome. I mean, Rory is 29, Kieran's 28. It's not like they're old, right? Like still very young. It's like, and now they've got so many learnings that they can lean on. And while not many of the companies have been a financial success, these guys have crushed it when it comes to like actually getting users on their platforms and getting people to actually enjoy actually using the product. So I guess with the first one, gifts, right? Like that was the thing that got the ball rolling. And I just thought like, wow, did they have to be in the trenches for that one? Like they were telling us stories about how they were sleeping on their floor and like they couldn't even afford like an air mattress. Like that's crazy when you think about like where these guys are at now.
The gift factory floor. I mean, I wonder what that looks like, right? Dude, just before we cut to them talking about that story, which the viewers, you guys will love, is... You know that scene in The Social Network when Armie Hammer's like, you know, the Winklevoss guy, he's like, why would he ever touch me? He's like, I'm 6'5", 250, and there's two of me. And it's like, with these guys, the same shit. It's like, there's two of them. It's like, bro, I mean, we could be building so much shit if there was two of me. If there's two of me, like, I could have $1 billion company, you know what I mean? So
I don't know about that. I think two Michael Sakans and they're just going to be clowning all day. I don't know if we're going to get anything productive out of them.
Both got very lucky. We both went to Harvard, got there, absolutely loved it. This is 2012, and then Kieran was 2013 when we first went in. Started messing around with the GIFs. As you guys know, they're addicting, and we couldn't get enough of it, so we dropped out, made a GIF website. We called it gifs.com, able to snag a domain from someone, scaled it up. We actually never sold gifs.com. We still own it to this day. And at that point, we basically had no money. It was very... like crazy, like sleeping on the floor.
Me, my brother, like a third guy, Rory and the other guy, like had like one bed skirt between two people.
And we had a hack to go viral. And this was probably one of the first of its kind. We called it like domain as an interface, where if you go to any YouTube video, you could put GIF in front of it. And we would grab the ID at the end of the video. And we would show you that video on our website now, GIF YouTube. But the user only had to put GIF. So we made a GIF of someone putting in GIF and then making a GIF of it. And that went super viral. Like back when Tumblr was big, it was like hundreds of thousands of reblogs, #1 on Hacker News, #1 on TechCrunch. It was like pretty ridiculous. We had like 20 million GIFs made, millions of registered users, all with GIF YouTube. And then we like YouTube, this is back in the Google Plus days. They like re-Google Plused it. And we were like, holy shit, they're going to shut us down. We have to rebrand from GIF YouTube to something else. So then we rebranded to GIF YT, just abbreviated to YouTube. Eventually we raised like $4 million for it, and then we bought gifs.com. Actually, we should have capitalized way more on it. Kieran,
we
like,
charged Netflix like $5. My Netflix bill would be like $15.
You know that saying that people talk about, which is like, if you're on Reddit, you're early, but if you're on like Twitter or LinkedIn, you're probably late. That's where these guys were living, right? Like they were on, the kind of the early Reddit crew, like just really nerdy, and they're just geeking out about like memes and like other nerdy stuff, right? So that was kind of where these guys started. But I think what surprised them is just how quickly the product took off, right? Like they had tons of massive names using this platform. They had all the biggest companies out there using this. What was so hard with them is like, I feel like they just fucked up the monetization side of this. Like they were just charging $1 because why not? And I feel like now when I look at a bunch of, these consumer plays, what differentiates them versus the ones that don't succeed oftentimes is they figured out the monetization strategy first, right? Like lots of people now know how to go viral, but you got to figure out how to make money from it.
Yeah, I think the wisdom that you should just try and get as many users as possible and monetize later was a very like 2005 Zuckerberg-esque viewpoint that I think was still carried into those 2010, investor meetings and such. So what they were saying is like, it wasn't even cool to have like charge for your product. Like that wasn't actually, money wasn't cool. Money didn't used to be cool, which is funny. It used to just be how many like daily active users you had. But
well, it kind of puts a ceiling on your business, right? Like that's why when they say if you're gonna go raise money, raise it on the sizzle, not the steak, because once they can actually have a benchmark to compare your company towards, it's hard to like get out of that box.
Well, yeah, it's like, in the Social Network when Sean Parker is like, no, like we don't want to advertise yet. Just like let it roll. Like keep building up. But yeah, I mean, they were charging a very small dollar amount for a very small percentage of users. What I didn't understand is why they weren't running ads. Because I know there's tons of websites like this. Think of remove.bg. Think of Photopea, which is a Photoshop clone. There's all these sorts of creative tools online that are very highly trafficked. And they all make like a few mil a year in ads. So there's some developer who built it, just to kind of help people, online. And now they're on the beach in the Bahamas because they have this, 7-figure business. There's always a way to monetize attention. You know what I mean? But maybe
absolutely.
They just
and I think that's why you shouldn't give up on a project either. Like what I've come to notice is that even if it's not working for you, there's so many talented operators that exist out there. So like you shouldn't just shut it down. I think a lot of these tech guys, that's what they do is like they work on it. They're like almost obsessive about it. And then they can't find a way to make money. And then they just wrap that shit up. But I was like, hey, what are you guys doing with this? Like, is this thing still functioning? And they're like, yeah, no one really works on it. I'm like, dude, someone would probably buy this from you guys for like a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I think they should put it on MicroAcquire or something because the domain name alone is very valuable.
That was the funny part, right? They were like, we were like, you could probably sell this company for like tens of millions of dollars. Like you have so much data here. And they're like, well, do you want us to buy it for tens of millions? Like we'll happily sell it to you.
Yeah. He's like, you let me know if you want to spend a few million on this domain name. But I mean, what are you going to do with gifs.com? You know what I mean? It's also like any kind of new communication file format is like, it can be a fad. So like GIFs blew up and then they kind of like fell down in terms of like usage and shareability and such, but they're still a big part of internet culture, right? They're still a mainstay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they were early to the GIFs thing. Then it kind of, phased out, but the next thing they were early on was the crypto wave. So Ethereum, run the clip, Mike.
Yeah. So Kieran was on the Bitcoin talk forums in 2010. So he was super early into Bitcoin, like ridiculously early. And then after we dropped out of school, maybe like a year later, we became Teal Fellows. So we were acquainted with Vitalik, who co-founded Ethereum. And Vitalik was pitching Kieran one day in like a taxi cab and was telling him all about Ethereum and that he should buy it. And Kieran really wanted to put all of his money into it. He's like, Rory, we have to invest every amount of dollars we have into Ethereum. It's going to be huge. So we put out a project. We were pretty lucky to have like really good and sound legal advice on how to structure it. Sold a bunch of Ethereum. We usually don't talk about it that much anymore since you could do small tasks and get paid for it. Okay. It was like decentralized Mechanical Turk. It was a super hot project. And then as soon as we did the token sale, we were in a lawsuit from another company with the same name, which was really annoying. And then also right when we launched, I don't know if you guys remember this too, but Ethereum went down like 90%. The altcoins, like the ERC20 tokens, went down 99.9%, our token included.
I know these guys are really good at like sensing the next big thing, but dude, if I'm in the back of a taxi with Vitalik Buterin in like 2013, bro, I'm trying to get out. Like, I do not want to be in the back of the car with that dude. He looks like an alien. And like, the thing is that Kieran ran home to Rory and was like, we have to put our life savings into this. It's like, what is it with the back of a taxi and just being able to pull off, some big heist? Like Adam Newman convincing Satoshi-san to invest in WeWork in the back of a taxi.
Dude, it's all for the plot. They're just they're looking for something that'll make it in their biography one day. It makes for a cool story.
Bro, do you remember that TV show Cash Cab when you're in the back of the cab?
Yeah, for sure. I love that shit.
Yeah. Dude, they should do one of those for business. I feel like that could be a good series.
Yeah.
Just like by the time you arrive, you have to be an investor in their business.
Yeah. Community was such a big thing for these guys. And I feel like it's almost like a little cringe to talk about community because everyone says it. No one really knows how to define it. But I will give, credence to the crypto community about this because they really found a way to band together. I have rarely seen someone get so excited on projects that don't make any sense, right? Like they'll find a new way to create a coin and before you know it, there's like thousands of crypto nerds geeking out about it, right? And they all do the dumbest shit possible. But I think the big question is like, how do you take that sense of community and actually bring it to something where, your project isn't just going to disappear because like some bad actors are going to, make that happen, right? Like it's like some shit goes down and before you know it, you lose all your money on a coin.
Yeah. I mean, look, every crypto project owner was like, we're going to have real utility. Like that was the buzzword. It's like real utility. Well, what they were doing is I'm pretty sure completing tasks was like got you more of their coin. So they actually had that piece down years before NFTs, years before the newer projects, and that, real world actions or interactions led to accumulation of the coin, right? And that's like, again, connecting it to the real world. It wasn't just a speculative bubble. Like it was like, this is powered by real shit. And I thought that was another disruptive insight that they had. But I think they were just too early. I think if these guys had done an NFT project, they could have made millions. Like these guys could have, like, what if they had merged GIF.com with like an NFT generator? Like, I don't know why these guys weren't able to figure out that big opportunity. But I mean, either way, they probably would have been wiped out in the most recent crypto crash. But I actually think they were even a little. They've always been a little too early. I'm not sure.
A little too early. I would agree.
Yeah, but they have a great sense of seeing what's next when it comes to like new technologies. And I think a big part of that is just kind of being in the right place and becoming the guys that they were, right? They became Teal Fellows, and that's what introduced them to Vitalik, and that's what helped them see that trend was coming along, right? So by being these prodigal kids, they've been in the right rooms and communities to figure out, what's going to come next.
They always talk about how you shouldn't play in competitive markets. You should, find your blue ocean. But the more I think about it, I find that like it's probably a good thing to play in areas where there is competition because that's where the money is. There's already talent. There's already education around like what it is someone is doing. I think that's the challenge, right? When you're too early, you kind of have to be the trailblazer to figure it all out. And then by the time you do, there's like 10 copycats just show up, they raise a bunch of money, and then they start poaching your talent. And it almost feels unfair. It's like, damn, like we had to do all the heavy lifting and, all these other guys kind of mooch off our success.
Yeah, I think, being a second mover or a third mover is a pretty good place to be because then you can just, poaching talent is like an amazing thing that young founders can do. It's like, I'm just going to go take this guy who's built the exact thing that I want to do. There's actually this great tactical strategy I learned from this guy, Clay Ratterman, at South by Southwest last year. And he was talking about how, he was building some personal finance expense tracker. And what he would do is find developers that had tried to build something similar but failed, and then like brought them back on and given that idea a second chance at life. And it was like, these guys already have done this exact thing. It just like wasn't executed properly. So I think that's a pitch that you can make to people who have worked at a company that's maybe been successful in a new market, and then like bring them over to your vision, right? Like none of these other EV companies would have been possible without Tesla, right? Like Lucid Motors was started by 2x Tesla people. It's like that first mover creates the talent and the mindset for the other companies to exist. So
yeah. And also it's like when a new technology takes place, what happens is that, you know, you're probably chasing after the people who look really, really good on paper, right? Like they went to the top schools, they got the top degrees, they are just very credentialed in this new technology, whatever it is. But that means that like the people with hustle, maybe they just didn't have those opportunities. They kind of get overlooked. So you can almost like position your entire strategy not on like necessarily like the people that, you know, are expected to win, but rather like assemble a team of underdogs who are just super, super hungry. You're probably more likely to go farther with them than like the people who think, you know, they deserve to win. So also just something kind of interesting about this.
Absolutely. So they made the pivot from DeFi. I mean, they lost like $80 million, which is just crazy to think about. And they were never quite able to get the bag back. But this whole time we've been foreshadowing what their next big play is. And they're kind of their segue into the fintech space, the traditional finance, was started with a debit card company. So we're going to play the clip of them telling the story of this, and we'll get to their next idea soon.
And we were kind of looking at the debit card market, but we made this debit card called Millions, and it was for folks who were getting 0% cash back. So I don't know if you guys know, but debit cards give 0%, a fat 0%. And our parents are hardworking folks, and they only use debit. It's not because they couldn't get credit. It's just because why, in theory, why spend money that you don't have? Why not just take it out right away? Like, why have this sort of risk? And we thought that the debit audience was wildly underserved. So we made this debit card. You could swipe your Millions card and potentially win up to $1 million. And it was all insurance backed. So the insurance company would pay the prize. We would pay them the premium. And we grew wildly on social media. We became like the largest fintech on TikTok with 1.4 million followers. Grew to like 800K subs on YouTube, 250K on Twitter. People loved it. But the thing is, it was wildly unprofitable. We would see that our most profitable consumers had their card stored at Amazon, DoorDash, et cetera, and they were using it. And our most unprofitable consumers were using it randomly at like a 7-Eleven and then never using it again. So we would call people up and say, why don't you use your Millions card online? And they would tell us a story about how hard it was to add their card everywhere. And we literally the first couple times I was like, dude, it's not that hard. You just go into the website and add your card. I'll like hang up the phone, like, this person's nuts. Like, what are they talking about? Yeah. Then I heard it 20, 30 times in a row, and I was like, holy shit, I don't even use my Millions card on Amazon or Verizon. Like, I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world. And we're the co-founders of the company. I don't use my card everywhere. I went through the flow, and I was like, this is hard. Amazon hides your payment details because they want you to do one-click checkout. When do I ever go to Verizon? I never go to Verizon.com. When will I ever update my card? I'll just use my old card. So then we made Not to make it easier to add your card. And it's kind of like a merchant connectivity play. I don't know if you guys have seen Plaid before, but it's kind of like Plaid, but for merchant connectivity. And the first product is you could add your card wherever you want. You just log in, boom, your card is instantly there as the preferred default card. We raised 13 mil. Amex invested, Plaid invested. We're launching with some major top 5 banks early next year.
Okay, so starting off with the debit cards, I actually thought this is an interesting idea. I feel like there hasn't been too much innovation in the debit card space, and it's because, you know, it's not necessarily as lucrative. I feel like credit cards are just inherently predatory, right? Like crazy APRs, and like banks are kind of depending on you to either have late payments or not be able to make it, so you keep paying the interest, right? So the incentives aren't really aligned for, you know, you to build good financial habits. So that's where debit cards come in. And these guys came in with a good idea. The issue is like they just couldn't get people to use it, right? On paper, everyone thought it was a great idea, but like the customers just didn't really care for it. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you think of the credit card business, there's a few different revenue streams, right? There's interchange fees, which are pretty
Yeah.
small. You can't build a business on the back of interchange fees, which is like when you're swiping the card at a terminal, you get some of that because it's your card that's doing it. The next is APR. So, yeah, of course, when people are late on payments, we know Americans have massive credit card debt. And third is annual fees. Debit cards have none of those things. I think they do have the interchange fees, but again, those are really small. So you're kind of disadvantaged from the start in that you don't have those other revenue mechanisms. I haven't seen a debit card come into vogue that everyone's been like, oh my God, that debit
Gotta
card.
get this debit card.
Gotta get that debit card, right? But I actually think there is opportunity for that because we know that people like Dave Ramsey, right? What he says, like no credit cards, only debit cards, like my mom only uses a debit card, and all this stuff. So it's like, there probably is opportunity to innovate in that space. And the way they did it was a lottery system. The card was called Millions, and you could win $1 million or something. And it was fascinating. They were paying an insurance company to make sure that if they did have to pay out this money, they'd be okay. But it was a great shtick, and everything these guys have done has been a great shtick, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was the next big crypto coin and the community that's going to change the world, or the GIF, turning a YouTube video into a GIF and the complexity of that. But they couldn't get first of wallet. And, you and I know the space relatively well just by hearing our friends who are starting credit card companies talk. You got to be first in wallet, otherwise you're dead in the water, right? And first in wallet means you're a significant percentage of that person's monthly spend. So yeah, that was the challenge, and it's what's opened up their next business idea, not. So, I mean, dude, let's dive into that one, because what a genius idea to do this API fintech platform that's kind of like Plaid.
Yes, not API. So essentially this is like Plaid, but the B2B use case for this. So they work with these big banks, these big financial institutions, and essentially enable you to have like this one-way access into being able to upload any of your credit cards on there. And then they spread it across all the merchants, right? So you essentially upload it to whatever bank you have. They will then, upload it to Amazon and every other place you would need to use that card, right? So very genius in just like the conceptual aspect of it.
Yeah. If people probably know what Plaid is. So whenever you need to connect your bank account to an online platform, you can sign directly in with your bank and then get it access. It solved a huge pain point, because I think what used to happen is they used to have to send like 1 cent to your bank account and you have to verify that it was the right one. So Plaid's a genius company, multi-billion-dollar business at this point. These guys, it's like you get a new card with your bank and then you could automatically, upload the payment information. So with one click, my card is instantly added to all the sites I shop at the most, which is revolutionary, and it is like magic. And I remember, I don't know if we included this in the clip, but like they talked about how they got buy-in, right? Like how they actually got people to join them, invest in their company and such. And it's like, they've never seen a better demo than this in their life, right? They're amazed.
It's for sure. They're depending on product-led growth for sure. It's like, let's just blow them out of the water when we show them this demo, and it's going to do the selling for us. I think that like something we have to also give appreciation towards is like, they have a stacked cap table, right? Amex Ventures is on this thing. Plaid is on this thing, right? Like, I couldn't think of two better partners for you to have if you're like trying to go build something in the fintech space.
I know. I mean, you and I were big proponents of like trying to get a strategic when we were trying to raise money for our future. And that's what opened up the door to the Morning Brew stuff, right? But we've seen it time and time again, from Griffin, who was doing his bars, to being in Mondelez's accelerator, to other founders having a strategic on board. It really is a cheat code. And if you're thinking about raising money for your business, having one or two institutional players or, business industry players on board is not only a cheat code to maybe an acquisition, but also just opening doors. The guy that their investors, the former like executive at Plaid, right? Like he's already integrated with all the banks. So it's like, okay, well, we don't necessarily need to burn tons of money on cold outreach sales teams to try and get in touch with these customers. You also mentioned something about being in fintech. The sales cycles are so long. Like for a bank to buy a piece of software, it's tremendous. But
it can take 2 to 3 years to close a deal with the bank. It takes forever.
But what they were saying is their solving such a core problem because they really understand the bank's business, right? The bank's business is like you being retained as a card holder, right? You spending money on your card, right? And they literally like make that's their priority. Like they literally contribute to the bank's bottom line necessary equation for revenue growth sustainability.
Yeah, I agree, right? They're covering retention, they're covering like revenue growth, all of the things that, a bank would want to hear. But the challenge is like they're, essentially being exposed to very sensitive consumer data points, right? Like, they're not only getting access to your financial cards, but now they're in charge of like giving this to third parties like Amazon. And they're also like in charge of like getting this information to them, right? So I don't know if a bank is just like, okay, this makes a ton of sense. We're going to start working with you. I feel like that was something that I wasn't fully convinced in. I don't know if you can just like brute force your way into getting them to use you, even if the product is great, like just because of the security challenges involved.
Yeah, well, we got a little bit of data. They've raised 13 million. We don't know how many customers they have. We don't quite know how far along they are. But I think there's significant red tape when you're dealing with customer info on this level, right? One hack could kill them. You know what I mean? Like, Equifax, that hack, they're too big to fail. That's all that's your credit data. It's the most sensitive information in the world. But, being a small company with only, 15, 20 employees, wow, you got to be careful. Didn't they mention CISO, like a chief information security officer or something along those lines? I think they got their CISO from Plaid or something along those lines, right? So like they paid special attention towards that topic by bringing in someone who like had already gone through the regulatory approvals and such, which is another cheat code, right? It's like Sam Ratner bringing on the executive who'd already worked with the tribes and all the game information.
Because at the end of the day, they want to buy from people they've known for decades or have worked with on multiple business transactions and deals together.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like people don't want to buy from the upstart kids, like the Harvard dropouts. They want to buy from people they bought from before and who are people who are like them. My friend was telling me this. He's like, I see a lot of opportunity in construction software. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. That makes sense to me. And then he was like, but they don't want to hear from some slick Silicon Valley Harvard dropout. They want to hear from people like me who use their hands and who are in the field and who understand the space. So, that's important when you're ever thinking about bringing on a salesperson, a regulatory person, what have you. Make sure they're like the person, they know the people they're selling to, and they're like the person they're selling to, because I think that goes a long way. So these guys, everything they've done has been like a great product and then some kind of magic trick that just blows people away. And, whether it's a debit card that could win you $1 million or, the GIF website that can turn a YouTube video, and it's like magic. The O'Reilly effect, I'm calling it. This whole approach of like, do you build a great, like, should you be trying to create distribution for like a semi-average product and just like being really good at that? Or is it better to be really good at product and then the marketing is so much easier? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think
they seem to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They seem like you either have a really good product, spend all your time on product and you have shitty marketing, or you spend all your time on marketing and have a shitty product, right? But they seem to have both.
Marketing can be fixed. Like, I think that you can always build a better flywheel, but if the product sucks at the end of the day, like people are going to churn, right? Like, why would businesses continue to use you? They may use you if you're the only option in the market, but if it's that lucrative, you're going to see competitors. And then like the highest quality product will win. The issue is, like, we talked about this in the last episode, but when it comes to just pure play marketing, like there's no defensibility there. There's no moat. Like every process or like tactic or strategy that works and people know about, they just replicate. So at the end of the day, like your product has to do the talking for you. And I feel like on this show, we probably need to give that more appreciation, like probably our own self-feedback. It's funny. We talk to a lot of people who build companies in really regulated spaces, and almost always it's mission driven. It's like, we want to do something big. I believe that. I also think there's another component that means like if you build in a big space and it's growing, you're going to make a shit ton of money. But every person I've talked to who's built a company in the regulated space says, I will never build a company in a regulated space ever again. Don't you think that's funny?
Yeah, it definitely does. Because for people who aren't in regulated spaces, they're like, damn, like, I wish I didn't have so much competition. And then for people who are in our regulated spaces, like, damn, it'd probably just be easier to eat everyone else's lunch with a better product and better team, as opposed to dealing with some bureaucrat in Nebraska who's like gatekeeping some shit.
Well, it must be so frustrating too, because it's like, you're trying to push things along and you're trying to make progress, but someone is just stopping you, and you just have to kind of sit there and wait for them, like, as you twiddle your thumbs, as like, waiting for someone to get back to you and say, yeah, you can go ahead and do this, or yeah, we'll work with you.
Yeah.
Probably so frustrating.
Well, dude, I just want to wrap on this episode, and I love that point, by saying, gosh, for you and I and our journey, and for whoever else is listening, a lot of the time your first business is something that's relatively easy to get into. It's something with a low barrier to entry. But my golly, if you can combine an amazing product with amazing sales, I mean, you could be a fucking billionaire, right? I spent 3 years of my life saying a TikTok page was the best thing since sliced bread, and people believe me. So, I mean, if we could, create something that is just like this, like magic in whatever industry, gosh, that's fucking game over. So that's what I'm thinking about is, if I can bring the O'Reilly effect to my next company, and I can bring my sales abilities to a fabulous product, we can have it all. Right?
Agreed. I would also say, if
I'm done talking about trade-offs. I'm done with trade-offs. Good marketing, good product. No, we're going to have it all.
We're going all in on product.
We're going all in. I would also
say, if you're building your first company, try to avoid a regulated space. Like, there are levels to this stuff. Work on something easy. Work on something that you can get a quick win on, and then tackle the bigger problem down the road. Like, there will be time as you figure it out.
You're really tooting our own playbook here, but that's what we do on the show. We cram our own kind of story down your throat and hope that you guys like it. And this is coming from you, Simi, who tried to build a business inside of airports. So with that,
I'm never going to live that one down.
With that, everybody, thank you for listening to Our Future Podcast. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a review on any of the audio podcast apps. We love doing this every week, and we'll be back with you guys next week. Holidays are approaching. It's a good time of year to stay frosty.
Love it. Stay frosty.
Peace out.